I've got a question.
Go for it.
Hello, Good Ship. Loving the Good Ship podcast. Thank you all so much for your valuable insights. You hear that? Valuable insights?
Valuable.
Mm-hmm. I just have a question for you all regarding clients. I know you've covered this a lot, but I'd love to know the actual process, the hunt for clients. Where do you go to find them? What resources are available, such as directories, websites, socials? Also, what is the etiquette for adding, messaging clients on social media? And that's from Emily Haynes Studio.
Oh, it's a two-parter, isn't it?
It's a good question.
My first thing would be, I know you probably said this is a joke, but hunting clients, not hunting them.
You like to lie down in their way and they find you.
I like clients to illustrate a hunt and then they can find me. Yeah. I think maybe that's it. But it's quite important, isn't it? Like the energy of how you find clients. Because if you're pitching to people, if you slide into their DMs or whatever and you have this like, hunting you, I need you, that I think people can really pick up on that. So it's worth checking in with yourself maybe before you start hunting clients.
You definitely want your stall laid out to look absolutely amazing first, don't you? Because even if you're going to reach out to clients, you're going to point them at your website. And if that's not looking lovely, tip-top, then no. So yeah, you definitely need to lay out your stall. And then hopefully people will find you, but there's ways of helping people find you.
Tell us how you lie down, Katie, and get found.
Well, like Helen said, making sure my shop front is nice. My lights are on. It's warm.
Cushions are plumped.
Yeah, cushions are plumped. SEO, the kettle's on. Yeah. So SEO, like they Google things like, I need an illustrator for this. Then you pop up. So if you know what you're doing, which you talk about in the business course, and it's about, figuring out what you want to do, so that then you can optimize all of the words on your website, so that if somebody wants somebody who illustrates whales, for instance, not the country, the animal, all the countries, yeah, the nation, then you're going to pop up. And that means they've got really high intent because they're looking for that specific thing and you're answering that specific thing. So they're not comparing you based on price. They're not comparing you based on
style.
You're in London. Like, you want to get quite specific for SEO to work in your favour. And then, people just really want to work with you. And if your website's lovely and it encourages people to know, like, and trust you, that's really helpful as well. Because then it means by the time they message you, they're just like, take my money. When are you free? Let's work together. Which is the energy that I much prefer to pitching. So it's never worked for me.
Pitching's really difficult. I mean, writing pitch letters to clients, saying, I love your brand, I'm ready to work with you. That's how, I think there was a midway point and a lot of people used active pitching at one point. But prior to that, the world was a bit like the dinosaur world of illustration in the 90s was, as Emily described. Emily, I'm not calling you a dinosaur. I am actually, because that's the world we grew up into. I'm calling myself a dinosaur. That's what we were told. Here, have a look at these annuals. So we'd get these big illustration annuals that cost a fortune to advertise in. And I remember at college, with the work we were doing, we'd lay the annuals out on the table. We'd all look at each other and think, these people aren't even related to us. Look at all this airbrush work. And it was nothing like the work we were doing.
It was horrible because you would pay a fortune to be in an annual, and then your work might be right beside something absolutely dreadful that made your work look bad. The colours were all wrong. The palette on the whole page was like, hurt your eyes. So you pay all that money and be put beside some other illustrators whose work was absolutely terrible. You just disappear into the pile of, they never work. I think I did it once.
The context would be wrong, wouldn't it? Just the entire context of it wasn't your work.
It weren't good.
But then those annuals were also sent out for free to art directors in advertising agencies. And they probably still are. That model does work for a lot of people.
Do you still see those directories? Not directories, annuals. I can't think of any except for the fantastic Bologna one, but nobody pays to be in that. They just feature lots of incredible illustrators in there. But I can't think of another annual.
But we wouldn't know because they're not sent to us. I wonder if there's anyone out there, any art directors that are receiving these big annuals, will you let us know if that model works anymore?
And did you get work? Were you both in annuals?
No, I did it once. No, I didn't get any work. Oh, hang on. No, maybe I think I maybe got a piece for Elle magazine.
Wow.
Yeah, horoscope. Yeah. It probably didn't cover the cost of being in the annual.
And the other one was like people used to use lists, but I mean, they still exist. I don't know anyone who uses them.
I remember before I learned about SEO, I was looking at, I think it was bikini lists, and I nearly spent, I think it was like £700. This is years ago, like 10 years ago.
£700 on a list.
That's like 2 months of my rent and bills. I was like, is this going to be worth it? And in the end, I didn't go for it because it felt like such a...
You do wonder who makes most money out of these lists and annuals. I'm sure the person making the annual and the list makes more money than the illustrators.
Yeah.
With that level of subscription, I mean, no wonder you've got to pay a lot to get into either of those. But then what do you do when you're given that information? Here are the names. I mean, we did used to send postcards, and that's still a good way because in a digital world, people are really excited to receive snail mail with some...
A postcard's nice and easy, though. I think in picture books, I used to send out postcards, and they really worked. And they're easy because you're not pitching. The idea of pitching, writing a letter saying, I love your brand, and I would fit in there. And oh, gosh, that sounds so difficult and kind of false and naff. And would it work? I don't know. Maybe it does work. I have no idea because I've never done it. But a postcard that shows your best piece of work with something very cheery and low pressure on the back. Like, I'm going to be in London and around then. It'd be nice to meet up. Blah, blah, blah. Bye.
No pressure.
No pressure. That's easy. I'm up for that. And I always used to do that, and that worked. But
those were the days, when people would go and take their portfolio. I'm sure nobody takes their portfolio anymore. If I'm wrong, let me know. I know a lot of American illustrators say they will do that kind of thing and say, hi, I'll be in New York. It'd be lovely to meet up. But the pressure on people now, we are so, in theory, we're hyper productive because of this digital world, and we can do everything much faster. I can't imagine art directors have an afternoon per week where they can look at portfolios. They're looking online and on Instagram.
Well, they'll be in their emails going, delete.
Yeah.
Publishers are definitely, children's book publishers are on Instagram, looking for talent on Instagram. I mean, if they like your work, they will get you in to see your folio, but I don't think they have a folio. Well, they don't have a folio day.
Yeah.
But if they love your work and they've seen you on Instagram and maybe had a bit of correspondence back and forth, then they would get you in to chat.
Yeah, I think if there's some kind of, and then you think, well, how do you build that relationship? How do you get that back and forth to begin with? But there's definitely a space for sending postcards with just a, hi, this is my work. And if they like it, they're going to call you up. No amount of persuasion in a letter is going to make someone who doesn't connect with your work ask to see more of it. That isn't going to happen. So you might as well just put, hello, this is me. But it will end up on their desk.
I feel like if they see it a certain number of times, like feeding a toddler a new meal, I think if the publisher has seen your work in different environments a few times, this is assuming your work is lovely and publishable. If they see a postcard and then they come across you on Instagram and then somebody mentions you, I think that's the kind of thing that builds up to them saying, will you come and see us? So I think it's worth frequently posting on your Instagram, maybe have a little chat on their Instagram page about something they've published, a little low pressure, I love what you're doing. I think if they come across you in different ways, that's a really good way to get in. And there's easy ways of doing that are not writing a big, long pitch letter.
You know who's really good at that?
Who?
Jo Overend.
Yes.
She's just quietly going, hello.
She's good fun, just low pressure. She posts on Instagram a lot, and they're really good fun, and people like chatting about what she posts up because it's silly and it's
never like, hire me now.
No.
It's just like, here's my work. Let's have a good time.
That's it. I mean, illustrators have got that benefit. There's something visual and precious to show, even if it's just a quick drawing you did a doodle while you're on the phone. All those different levels of, here's just a scribble I did. Oh, no, and here's a full illustration. You can keep yourself visible because you're not having to use someone else's visual material to sell whatever it is you're selling. You already have the kind of gold dust of being an image maker. That's a content maker. So if you keep reminding people you exist. I was listening to this really good Mel Robbins podcast a couple of days ago where she was talking to someone from Harvard who was like some professor of employment and marketing. That sounds like totally the wrong name, but that's how I remember it. And she was just saying, if you do things and people don't know that you do them, if you're not externalizing what it is you do, how on earth will anyone know? So even if you're a non-illustrator, you have to find ways of talking about what it is you do. And that's that big crux, isn't it? It sounds like bragging and being boastful, but there's no way anyone's going to know. So if you keep showing your work, And then a little bit of hunting. Can you allow us a tiny bit, Katie?
Tiny bit, I'll let you.
Okay, go on LinkedIn, look for some names of people whose products you like that you would like to be part of. Find out who's the art director. And then you can send them just a postcard or even follow them on Instagram. So that makes a kind of connection with them.
Chat to them about what they're posting. I think if you want to get into picture books, it's a really good idea to go in a bookshop and just see who's publishing the stuff that you like, see which publishers are doing what and send them a postcard or follow them on Instagram and then have a little chat with them.
I was going to say following's good because we've had people ask us in the past, like, what's the etiquette about following people? Like, of course you can follow them. If they're public, then
to be honest, they probably won't notice whether you follow them or not. I would just definitely press follow. But then if they post something interesting, then be in the chat.
Yeah, follow them on Instagram and LinkedIn so that you've got those kind of connections there. What else did she ask something else about the etiquette of messaging?
Yeah, also, what is the etiquette for adding messaging clients on social media?
Yeah, I think you've got to be careful not to be harassing them.
Yeah, I think if you've chatted... Okay, so this is just instinct. If I've chatted with somebody a few times on their feed and they've replied, and then maybe it's gone into messages like, oh, I saw this thing we were talking about the other day, you might like it.
Yeah.
That's a really nice low pressure way to get in, because then they're going to have a look on your Instagram feed. And as long as you've set your stall out nice and your work is, publishable, lovely work, let's assume, then, they're going to stumble over you.
But it's not a good idea to go into messaging on any platform and say, hey, will you come and look at my portfolio? It's here.
No, I get really annoyed with, I sometimes get people say, just a message saying, follow me. Yeah, they might say a bit more, like, I've followed you, let's keep up community, follow me back. I'm like, no, I'm not even going to look now. It's up to me. Don't tell me what to do. It's not like that.
It's really hard to give clear, direct advice on that. How do I find clients? It's definitely, but I think what we've said is how it is. It's like building friendships and relationships. And it's kind of a little bit touchy-feely, a mixture of digital, SEO, and printed work.
And put yourself in their shoes. If a random person you'd never met appeared in your inbox and said, here's my work, like,
what do you think?
What do you think? Yeah, you'd be like, oh God, that's such a big question. I'm not even going to click on that. Or like sending somebody a voice note out of the blue, terrifying, I think, as a client. Because firstly, voice notes take ages to listen to. You've got to stop what you're doing and be like, what's this? So, and then also LinkedIn is, if you've ever had a cold pitch on LinkedIn, you know how horrible it is. It's like being slapped with a wet fish. Like, oh, you're interested in building your marketing skills? Like, you just like, go away, get out of my inbox.
So many people, you must be one of thousands when they've copied and pasted that generalized thing, which is also like emails. What do you think about emailing clients with?
I think, like you say, if you personalize it and show that you actually do care about what they're doing and you are watching, and what is it? We were just talking to somebody saying, I'm a long time fan of the good ship, and it turned out they weren't doing a good job of pretending to be a long time fan
because we couldn't find them on any lists of any of our social media.
They weren't on any email lists or any social media. We were like, are you? So like little things like that. It sounds really obvious. If you're gonna say you're a big long time fan or you really like somebody's work, maybe follow them first.
Make sure you're connected in some way. I mean, it's funny, the old rules of how you found a client are changing because of the whole kind of online world is changing so much. So there's always going to be new ways of trying to connect, but at least we can market ourselves and we're not bound to agents and being the only way to get a client. That said, I think agents are more important now than they have been, because if the annuals aren't there and people aren't using those lists, how do you find art directors in advertising agencies or design agencies who are dealing with all the juicy stuff like packaging and well-paid advertising work? Really, that route to those art directors is still through the agencies, unless you want to do all the legwork yourself.
I was just going to say there's never been a better time to be an illustrator, and that you don't really need an agent, because it's like there's no gatekeepers.
I think so too.
You can do what you want. Like we've been saying, you can follow somebody who you find out is an art director and quietly
Yeah.
humanly befriend them.
I think so too. And I think the same for selling your work through a gallery. I don't think you really need a gallery anymore. It's really sad because galleries are finding it hard to survive. So they're having to put their commission up. It's already difficult to sell your work through a gallery on commission from 20 years ago. Now it's so expensive. Half of, when you take the framing costs off and then the commission for the gallery, but you don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
It's so easy to sell your artwork online with a private view on a website, with a really great website and social media, and build up your email list. You don't need a gallery.
Yeah. What online platform would you use for selling your work at this point?
Well,
Shopify?
Well, what we've done with Jerry, with his lovely whale screen prints, is build up an email list.
Yeah.
Tell people that he's made some prints. It's a print run of 10, 15, whatever he usually does. They're going to be on this weekend. They usually sell out in a weekend, so get on there quick, and we just stick them all up on. We've always been doing it on Squarespace, so it's not even a shop, and people just email us and say, I'll have that one, and pay for it, and then we mark it. So I think we're about to just put them in a shop, but they'll only be in there for a weekend.
Yeah.
That's how we do it. They go in there.
That's such a good point as well, the mailing list thing. Because
Mailing list is so handy. Yeah. You own the list. So if social media went down or everybody left Instagram or whatever, you keep your people because they're on your mailing list, which is really important. So a good way to get clients by building up a network so that people are kind of aware who you are is entering competitions or mentoring competitions. So within the world of picture books, I know publishers will speak to picture hooks who run their competitions and mentoring. They speak to me, often publishers and agents will ask me, and the people who stay in my mind are the people who've applied for our one-on-one mentoring. You don't want to pay money to enter these competitions. And you don't want to give your copyright away, but some strategic competitions are really good.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of the illustration ones, you do have to pay fees to get in, but I think it's worth it to get
the
your
AOI
eyes.
charge, don't they? But that's a good.
The World Illustration Awards.
Yeah.
But it's a good. There's a few others.
I think if you enter in those, and the people organising the show know who you are, and people who've been to see the show know who you are. So
yeah, if it's a travelling show as well, and your work carries on. Being shown around the world, like the World Illustration Awards, which is a touring exhibition. That's a really good way to show your work. I have a range of cards that I sell in Hong Kong, so I still have a lot of Hong Kong clients. So having cards overseas in a shop is also like having a calling card present somewhere. So
it's free advertising, isn't it?
Yeah. And the only people who buy cards are people who like the cards. And they send them to people who they think will appreciate that card because they have the same aesthetic. So, okay, you might be sending them around to non-design people, but you never know. There might be someone who's interested in commissioning you. So cards are a really good way to keep yourself circulated.
You never know who's watching.
Yeah. I think there's lots of information there, all the different versions of getting your work out there. So hope it's useful, Emily.
Yeah, fling some spaghetti against the wall. See what sticks. Oh, the mud. It's not
my dad was a car salesman. He used to say, fling mud a bit against the wall, some of it'll stick.
Yeah, there you go. Have some mud flinging.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Like